Hello everybody, welcome to another update on the stock screener. Today we continue with another episode of Verde Agritech, and we got confirmation yesterday that Verde has launched Biorevolution, which I talked about 2 days ago, and it has finally happened. So what is Biorevolution? It's a technology that incorporates microorganisms in glauconite. It's as easy as that. And I want to dive deeper into this new technology. So I took a look at the patent, and you can read all of this yourself, but you can see which bacteria that can be used with this patent. They also give the technical specifications to produce it, and also they give the tests on the crop yields that they get from applying this product to the plants. So a lot of information, very detailed, which you can read yourself. But I will give you the conclusion because I read it. So basically, this is the process. You can see here the bioreactors to create the microorganisms in a solution. So this is at a high temperature, like 20-30 degrees, to grow them. And then they are transferred into these refrigerated lung tanks. You can see the legend here, which are at 5-6 degrees. And then they are transferred to a venturi. And this is the water that's being added with a flow meter. And that will go to the humidifier and be sprayed on to conveyor belts or in mixers. So it's a very complex invention, and yeah, a lot of testing is needed for this. Also, as you know, I did engineering myself, and I was in the business of spraying powders as well. So that's really not an easy process. So I'm going to tell you some of my experiences. So first off, you need to have the right sprayer, because if it's not spreading enough, then you can get a bad end product with too much water in it. And you need to ensure the flow is constant. That's why we have this flow meter here, to make sure that the powder doesn't stick together, because you do not want that, because then you can stop your process and do some quality checks later on, and that's, you do not want to have powder that sticks together. There will be a lot of downtime then. If something shuts down, it's always possible that the conveyor belt, for example, shuts down. Then you need to restart everything again. So reducing downtime is very important. Also, the sprayer needs to be cleaned from clogging. So that's why we need this water reservoir to clean the nozzles as well. Because yeah, if it's clogged, then the flow is not okay anymore. So a lot of problems can happen. A lot of maintenance is needed. Also, the humidity needs to be monitored of the end product. Temperature control, of course. You do not want to kill the bacteria, and needs to be refrigerated to the correct temperature. So temperature meters need to be controlled. You need to calculate how much refrigeration units needs to work. Lots of controls that are needed. Concentration needs to be okay for the solution. And then you need the electrical installations, the factory acceptance testing, site acceptance testing, to check that the DCS automation control and the PLCs are working. So this is a distributed control system. So you want to automatically monitor all of these things, all this equipment. You need to add interlocks, for example. If the conveyor belt stops, you need to make sure that all the pumps are closed, all the valves are closed, so that you don't get accidents. So there's a lot of engineering going on with this process. So, but the good news is that Verde is able to produce it. They're going to launch the product in May. And I think that the competitors will need at least a year or two to get this process up. So that gives Verde a first mover advantage. And I can tell you this is not an easy process to do. So let's talk about Biorevolution. So the bacteria that are added are 6 months active. And there's a lot of synergy between glauconite and these microorganisms. So they can live for 6 months in glauconite, so that's very good. This is the bacteria that they used. They add 2 milliliters of bacteria for 1 kilogram of fertilizer. I have calculated this as being around 2 liters per minute to spray 2 million tons per year. So that's not a lot. That's very doable, 2 liters per minute. And the humidity is about 5% of the end product. So they will need to monitor that the humidity stays at this level. It gives a higher crop yield and a reduction in fertilizer use, which I will talk about later. And it's about 100 tons per hour. In their presentation, it's 800,000 tons per year. So enough for phase 1 of production. And now let's talk about their results. So they transplanted some seedlings, and after 60 days, they were going to cut the leaves. So on July 2020, they did the first cut. Then a month later, the second cut. And another month later, the third cut. And apparently, they saw a reduction in technical efficiency dose of 24% to 48% of the crop. So they needed like 50% less of the fertilizer to grow the plant to its maximum. So this is really great news. For the second cut, it's about the same reduction, 50%. And for the third cut, they didn't see a significant effect, but that's because if you keep cutting the leaves, then of course all the nutrients are already gone. So I think overall, the fertilizer use is being cut in half. This is extremely revolutionary because this means two things. First of all, the farmer here can use 50% less of fertilizer. So that means that Verde can double the price of this biorevolution to get the same result for the farmer. So that means double revenue for Verde, which also means double the share price, just using biorevolution. The second thing, if you reduce fertilizers by half, that also means that Brazil will need 50% less fertilizer in the future. So this is a game changer in the business. And I don't think that the competitors will be very happy with this, because their businesses will be cut in half if Verde manages to gain market share and produce all of this for Brazil in the future. So this is a disrupting technology. This is really disrupting. So what are the valuations today? As you know, the fertilizer price keeps on rising. So it keeps on rising. And we are today at almost 400 million market cap. Now let's add to this a price hike because of the Biorevolution. Let's hike the prices by 50%. So that will give us at least from 400 to next year, we could go to $3 billion. So that's almost a tenfold. And then we can go to the 13 million production, and that's about 10 billion. So 20, 30 fold. So this is massively bullish for Verde Agritech. And they said they could produce this Biorevolution in plant 1 already. So that's 700,000 tons production. And in plant 2, they will also start building this. So probably these two plants here can use Biorevolution. Now they only need to try to sell it, of course. The farmers need to buy it, and eventually they will buy it because it's a great product. You use 50% less of it to grow the same yields. So I don't see why they wouldn't buy it in the long term. So yes, this is great news, is disruptive, and will eventually mean that Brazil is going to transform in the fertilizer business. That was the update, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.